Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to talk about books, to talk about horror, and this time to talk about what I read in the month of September.
It's coffee time!
So I am still struggling to get back on track with my reading, but September I felt a lot more comfortable with the things that I was reading, and now comes the hard part, the news that I have to tell you guys. We got the house, so it is actually amazing news because it means that I'm going to be moving this December, which is also the bad news that I'm going to be moving this December. And I always get really anxious when I have to move because I have so many things to pack. And if you've ever moved yourself, you know that when you start, you kind of always underestimate how much stuff you actually have and how much needs to be packed. So also this time there's a lot of things I'm gonna get rid of before I move. It's kind of like a clean slate kind of situation, so a lot of things that need to be disposed of. So I am hoping to still have some time for reading in the month of October and November and December, but it might be a little bit harder for me also when it comes to putting up content. So all I'm asking for you guys, it's just a little bit of patience. I will be back with more consistent content as soon as I can. That being said, I did manage to read 6 books in the month of September, and I'm here to tell you what I thought of them. If you're new to the channel, hi, welcome to the coffee family. We love to rate books here with coffee mugs, and I also start with the lowest rating to the highest. So this month actually my reading has been pretty good. There was only one book that for some reason it didn't really vibe with me as much as I wanted it to, and that is The Night Walker by Thomas Desir. It is not the way the book was written, it is not about the story, it is about something that happened kind of midway through the book that made me nearly DNF it. So this book is actually a great exploration of the werewolf myth, and we follow an American ex-veteran from the Vietnam War that is now in London with his girlfriend, and he starts to have these nightmares and he starts feeling like his body is changing and he doesn't know what's happening to him. So I love to see that kind of exploration of really kind of realistic myth and take on the werewolves. I also love the setting in London. It's really atmospheric, and we have now the police investigating a series of murders, trying to find the killer. So all in all, when it comes to the horror aspects of the book, I really enjoy them. The death scenes are kind of gory and cool. However, there is something that happens midway through the book that made me extremely uncomfortable, and trust me, I have read and seen so much already, but it's something that has to do with kids. That's all I'm gonna say, and I was not there for it. It was really, I don't know how to describe it. It was just extremely disturbing and uncomfortable for me to read, and not because of the horror but because of what was being done in those scenes. I was not there for it. I just don't know how to describe it because I don't want to spoil the book if anybody wants to give it a shot, but honestly it nearly made me DNF it because I didn't feel like it was something extremely important for the story or the character development at all. So yeah, it was just not for me. The Horrors of Fox Hollow Farm by Richard Estep, and this book is based around a serial killer called Herbert Baumeister that targeted the gay community. I was unaware of his story, and I thought it would be interesting to dive into it since, you know guys, I am always really intrigued about true crime stories. I did listen to the audiobook of this one and I really enjoyed the narrator. I was kind of expecting this book to be a little bit more like your regular true crime stories, and they did cover some of the background of Herbert Baumeister and about the killings, but the book is really focused on paranormal investigation, and it does go a lot through the type of tests that you can do to see if you can identify a ghost in a room, or if you can kind of catch on camera, or if you can get some audio of some spirits. Like, it really talks you through some of the techniques of paranormal investigations, and we follow a couple of paranormal investigators and mediums that go to this Fox Hollow Farm to try to see if there's any ghosts there from all of the cruel acts that were committed on that property. So if you are into paranormal investigation, I think this one is going to be extremely interesting for you. I really enjoyed it. It's just not exactly what I was expecting from the book, but I thought it was really interesting because I haven't seen a movie or read a book about paranormal investigation in a long time. So I was kind of engaged and I was interested because it is written in a way that it is explaining to you also all the type of tests that they're doing. So they're really taking you with them to kind of explore this farm and also giving you feedback on what happened there in the past. Then I read Of Men and Monsters by Tom Deddy, and this one I read in just one night. It's super bingeable, and honestly this book was not exactly a horror book as I was expecting, but this turned out to be such an emotional read. It is about the real monsters, the nastiest, darkest sides of humankind. It is about how sometimes we carry our fears around and they are monsters that end up kind of attached to us. And it is about Ryan, his brother Max, and his mom. They are running away from their past and they go to live to this really small town by the sea where basically in winter is deserted, and they're hoping for a fresh start, some place where nobody knows them. But as we all know, we cannot really run away from our past. It always ends up catching up with us, and that is exactly what happens with this family. It was so emotional, so dark, but it was so beautifully written. It is a really interesting metaphor about fear, about, you know, the monsters of our lives, and it is told in a way that it's really sad. So it's kind of like a grief story with splashes of horror, if you may, but it is mostly about grief. Then I finally was able to read Billy Summers by Stephen King. Now, this has not been one of my absolute favorites from his last books, but I thought that the payoff was worth it. So this is a slow-paced book and it's more of a thriller, kind of more like a Mr. Mercedes. In this story we follow Billy Summers. He was in the Iraq war and he has a little bit of PTSD with that, and we do get to know a little bit about his time at war. But in the present time, when we get to know him, he is an assassin hired to kill people. Now, Billy always makes sure that his targets are really, really bad people that deserve what's coming for them. What I had kind of the most trouble with in this book is to really get into the story because it is really slow paced, and I was super into, you know, the character of Billy Summers and all of that, but the plot took so long to really develop until we really got a lot of action. So the first part of the book is going to be really slow paced, and then the second part is going to catch up. And like I said, for me the payoff, like the ending, was really good and I really enjoyed it. But if you're looking for a quick, fast-paced thriller, this might not be the one. Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chithmar, and I think this is one of my favorite things that I have read this year because I really enjoyed the mix between true crime and horror fiction. Now, this one is also going to be a book that it might be a little bit slow paced, but I still think it is definitely worth your time, especially if you love true crime stories. This is based in a small town where in the 80s, several young girls were brutally murdered and the police didn't know who was responsible for the killings. At times this feels like a memoir of Richard's life himself, and at times it feels like we are following this police investigation. We're trying to figure out the possible suspects, the motives and all of these, so it's really engaging in that part as well. And we also get some pictures between chapters, which helps us, you know, put some faces to our characters and also adds kind of like that touch of realism that a true crime book needs. I feel like It has a little bit of, I'll be gone in the dark, but of course there is a lot in this book that it is fiction, so just keep that in mind. It's kind of like a blend between reality and fiction, but I really enjoyed it. So if you don't mind a book that also in this case starts kind of a little bit slow paced and you just want to enjoy a nice, well told true crime story, I think that you'll have a good time with this one. And the winner this month is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I am so glad that I finally read this book. If you're someone like me that really enjoyed the movie, it's also one of the first horror movies I ever saw, so I always had it like in my heart as this jewel, and I was a little bit scared to dive into the novel and maybe find that, it was not as good as the movie or just be disappointed. So I was kind of a skeptic, but I have to tell you guys, this book, for being a 70s book, is just so fast-paced, action-packed, well-written. It's going to keep you so engaged, and it is a beautiful kind of exploration between, good and evil and the battle between them, and it's kind of like in a gray area. It's not really black and white. And if you've never seen the movie, it's basically about this young girl called Regan that gets possessed by a demon, and two priests are trying to, exorcise said demon. And if you love possession stories, please pick this one up. Also, it is beautifully written, and I just had such a good time with it. It also has a lot of heart, a lot of emotion, and it does get really intense at some point when it comes to the horror. And I was so pleasantly surprised about this book, to be honest. I don't want to give you way too many details because I still plan on doing a book versus movie video. I haven't done one of those in a while, and I thought this one would be the perfect one to do that because, like I said, love the movie. It's a reason for me now to rewatch it in October, and I can tell you a little bit more in depth about the book and the movie. Alright guys, so these are the 6 books that I read in the month of September. I hope that you enjoyed this quick wrap up. Let me know down below if you have read these books yourself, what you thought of them, and what is the best book you read in the month of September. Let's talk about horror books in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!